Welcome to CivilNet. My guest via Skype from London, England is Guney Yildiz. He is the BBC's expert on Turkey and Kurdish issues. Guney, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Here at CivilNet, we have been trying to give some comprehensive coverage of what is taking place in Turkey and Syria with the IS crisis at the moment. As we all know, the border city of Kobani has been under siege now for almost a month by the Islamic State. And over 150,000 Kurds have escaped into Turkey. Yesterday, we found out that Turkey decided quite abruptly to allow Kurdish peshmerga fighters to cross into Syria to help protect the Kurds still living there and fighting the IS. Can you try to explain to us what was the reasoning, the logic, the sudden shift in policy by Turkey?
Well, I should begin by saying that it's not a huge shift in their policy. Turkish government's policy towards Syrian Kurds, the best term to explain it are either contradiction, discrepancy, or U-turns. Turkish government started by, there's a peace process in Turkey between Turkey's Kurds, PKK, and Turkish government. But despite this, Turkish President Erdogan reiterated several times that they don't see any difference between Kurds fighting in Syria and the ISIS there. So equating those two organizations. And later he said that the Syrian Kurds are as equal to the Turkish PKK, which the government is in peace process, but there's still mistrust on both sides. But the latest move, which came yesterday, which came actually a day after Erdogan said they're not going to let any arms supplies to Syrian Kurds fighting against ISIS. And after that, we've seen United States and coalition airdropping those weapons. It didn't need Turkey to transfer those weapons. And since the United States made this abrupt and open challenge against Turkish policy, we've seen Turkish foreign minister changing their discourse, allowing Iraqi Kurdish fighters into Rojava or into Kobani. But the Iraqi Kurds are not, Turkish government's thinking behind this could be to introduce a rival group in northern Syria, because there's a Iraqi Kurds, especially the KDP, Kurdistan Democratic Party, is a political rival to the Syrian Kurds there. So at last moment, Turkey could have thought that, Turkish government could have thought that introducing a rival group in there, which is allied to Turkey, might be like a last chance to save the situation for them.
Right. Certainly there are a lot of divisions among any groups of people, any nations and countries, and among the Kurds as well, between the PKK, Hudapar, Hezbollah, the BDP. So certainly that could be a policy or a tactic used by Turkey. But I do want to talk about one thing. I've been following the Twitter feed. Kurds are very, very active, as are Turks, about the Kobani issue. And there's a lot of almost joy by certain Kurdish groups saying that now with the US air raids, airdrops, and with the peshmergas arriving in the next 24 hours to enter into Kobani, there might be a very definitive shift, and they might be able to completely push back the IS. Do you think that this is a fair estimate or a fair guessing game that people are playing right now?
Well, the tide in the fighting there has already been turned in the last week or so after coalition airstrikes have been intensified, and they took out the heavy weaponry of ISIS, especially tanks. We know that ISIS, Islamic State forces, could not be able to use any of their tanks in the last week or so, which they still have heavier weapons than the Syrian Kurdish fighters there. But it equates the war to a certain extent. And the introduction of bringing peshmergas in there will make a difference, obviously. But even in the fighting in Iraq, the difference, the PKK's guerrilla fighters made more difference, or they fought more effectively against ISIS, even in Iraq. So, and I've been speaking to officials inside Kobani. They were saying that they don't need any extra manpower or extra troops from outside. They just need heavy weaponry, and they can take out or they can beat ISIS with those heavy weaponry. Another interesting thing among the Kurdish public opinion was the huge, as you say, the joy about airstrikes and airdropping weapons by the US. Kurds in their language are writing on Twitter and elsewhere, long live America, which is an unprecedented thing for Kurds in Turkey, because Kurds in Turkey have been fighting against Turkey, which is a NATO member, second largest army in NATO, for over 30 years, and they've perceived the United States as an ally of Turkish government against Kurds. But this latest developments in Kobani have changed, could mean a shift in that public opinion.
If the Kurds were able to recapture Kobani and completely push out the IS, how will this fare for Ankara? How will it shore up more support for the Kurds? Will the Kurds in the southeastern parts of Turkey become more, I don't want to use the word belligerent or belligerent, will they become stronger and then try to gain more benefits or from this shift that's taking place right now?
Well, there will be several repercussions. First is the Kurdish movement in Turkey have linked Turkey's peace process to the fall of Kobani. They said if Kobani falls, then there will be no peace process in Turkey. So Kobani is not falling into the hands of IS means that the peace process could continue in Turkey. But there's a huge mistrust has been, the mistrust among Kurds have been intensified in the last few weeks when they've seen Turkey not doing enough, as they perceive, to save Kobani, not letting Kurdish fighters cross into Kobani. And this mistrust will stay there, and the Kurds coming out stronger in the fight in Kobani will empower them in Turkey too. And also in the international Kurds became, especially Syrian Kurds and Turkish Kurds by extension, became more acceptable in the international community with having direct contact with the United States and having world media reporting about the female fighters there and letting them making their case in the media. This has, Kurds count this as a gain in the international community.
Mm-hmm. Just as a final question, with everything that's taking place now in the Middle East, the civil war in Syria, the rise of the IS, again today we read reports that on Mount Sinjar there are again continued attacks by the IS. But just as a final question, is Turkey becoming a weaker player in the region because of its position with the IS, because of its policies in the region?
Well, Turkish government assumed that it is the only stable and powerful force in the Middle East that the West can engage in alliance against IS. And they were so sure about this position, and that's why they're so uneasy to see United States engaging in direct dialogue with the PYD, the Syrian Kurds there. They didn't calculate that there could be other actors in the region, that the United States and the West could work against ISIS, could ally against ISIS. This happened to a certain extent. We don't know whether it will continue. If you listen to the United States State Department officials, that they say it's a one-off thing. They're not going to cooperate with Kurds in the longer run, Syrian Kurds in the longer run. But it happened. Now there's another source. Just as it happened with Iraqi Kurdistan back in Gulf War and the occupation of Iraq. Now West is working with previously a group which had previously seen as a hostile group. And it could weaken Turkey's position because just 2 years ago, Turkish foreign policy's motto was zero problems with neighbors. Now Turkey has problems, obviously, with Syria and central Iraqi government, and the rapprochement with Armenia collapsed and lots of other things. Now Turkey has both a refugee problem, maybe over 1.5 million Syrian refugees are in Turkey, and since the conflict is going on and on, it will be a huge burden both sociologically and economically on Turkey. And with the IS, Turkey is in a quagmire. It will be very difficult for Turkey to move against IS. Because then you may see repercussions, and there's some sort of sympathy inside Turkey, and moving against IS will make the hands of PKK and Syrian Kurds stronger. That's another danger. So there are lots of difficult choices before Ankara now.
Well, Guney, thank you so much for this very interesting conversation. It certainly is a very complex and thorny situation in the Middle East, in Turkey and Syria. So thank you very much for enlightening us about the situation.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was Guney Yildiz. He is the BBC's expert on Turkey and Kurdish issues. Stay with CivilNet.